Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Legal Talk Tuesday. I'm Crystal I. Myers, Esquire, the attorney for everypreneur, and the founder and chief legal strategist of Be Bossy LLC, a legal strategy firm with a primary focus on helping small to mid-sized businesses realize their full potential through legal strategy. In other words, I help you secure the bag and your legacy. Before we get into this week's topic, let me remind you that this video is solely for educational and informational purposes only, and it's not intended to be a substitute for legal advice. Additionally, nothing that I say is with the intention of creating an attorney-client relationship between me and any of you. Now that all of that is out of the way, let's get into this week's topic. I'm frequently asked about how to go about transferring a title in real estate to an LLC. First, you start with contacting your mortgage company to let them know your plans and to determine what special requirements, if any, that they have. Don't assume all mortgage companies are the same because they are not. Note, even though you are transferring the deed into the LLC, you likely still will be personally liable for the mortgage, and your mortgage company may even require you to sign off on paperwork saying that you personally agree to cover the mortgage if the LLC is unable to do so. Next, you should set up the LLC. This requires filing it with the appropriate state entity, getting an EIN, and setting up a bank account. Let's put a pin in this step and come back to it in a minute. Once the LLC is set up, then you need to take the necessary steps to transfer the title to the LLC. This can be done via a quitclaim or warranty deed. Since the actual transfer process is not the subject of this episode, all I will say here is to be sure to consult an attorney to determine which deed is best for your individual situation. Now back to setting up the LLC. If you are like most folks who are looking at transferring the title of real estate property into an LLC, you're wondering what's the best strategy to do this. This is where I say, don't put all of your eggs into one basket. Meaning, you should create a LLC for each property you have. Yes, each property. If you think back to the main benefit of an LLC, which is to shield your personal assets from liability incurred by your business, or said another way, to keep your personal assets separate from your business assets and therefore separate from any liability, then this makes perfect sense. If you have multiple properties, you want to insulate the assets of each property from your personal assets as well as from each other. In case you're still not following me, think about it this way. Let's say you have 3 properties, A, B, and C, and they are all owned by one LLC. If the tenant in property B gets injured and sues you, your assets from all 3 properties are up for grabs. This means the value of each property, including any equity in the properties and any other assets related to the properties, are at risk. On the other hand, if each property is owned by 3 separate LLCs, only the assets of the property at issue is at risk. I know this may seem burdensome when you think about the annual state filing fees for each LLC and managing separate bank accounts for each LLC. But you should conduct a cost-benefit analysis when deciding if a separate LLC for each property makes sense for you. I will say this though, it almost always makes sense to have separate LLCs for each property. If you have more than 10 properties, I'm sure all you are seeing right now are dollar signs. In that case, if an LLC for each property is simply not an option, consider grouping 2 to 3 properties together instead of having all of the properties under one LLC. I will also note another benefit to having a separate LLC for each property is that when you go to sell a property, you may be able to sell the LLC itself, including its assets, i.e. the property, thereby potentially eliminating the tax obligation you would have if you sold the property itself. You should, of course, work with an experienced attorney and accountant if you decide to pursue this option of selling the LLC itself versus just the property. If you or someone you know needs help setting up an LLC or formulating a solid legal strategy around your real estate investment or rental properties business, head over to the website and book an appointment with us to discuss further. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode. Until next time, be bold, be brave, be bossy. See ya.